to Catalog and Cocktails, presented by Data.World, the data catalog for leveraging agile data governance to give power to people and data. We're coming to you live from Austin, Texas. It's an honest, no BS, non salesy conversation about enterprise data management with tasty beverage in hand. I'm Tim Gasper, longtime data nerd and product guy at Data.World, joined by Juan.
Hey, Tim, I'm Juan Cicada, principal scientist at Data.World, and it is Wednesday, middle of the week, towards the end of the day, and it is that time to go take a break, and let's go chat about data. And today is it's such a cool episode because we have two people who are, I think, the brilliant brains right now in the industry on data engineering. This is Reis and Matt Housley from Ternary Data, and also the authors of this new recent book on fundamentals of data engineering from O'Reilly, which this is a must-read book, which I have not read yet, I will acknowledge, but I just got it, arrived yesterday, and I'm just so blown away. I was just telling you guys about how you guys have structured this book. I'm so excited to dive into it, and today we're going to chat a lot about this whole topic of data engineering. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Well, it is great to have you. We were on your podcast recently, and you guys are just killing it on the conversations that everybody needs to be having. So
awesome. Thank you.
So tell and toast. What are you drinking and what are you toasting? What are we toasting?
Well, yeah, Matt.
I'm drinking water. So I'm doing okay. I'm actually not doing as well as I would like. Something just like some illness sort of flattened me last night. So I'm here drinking water rather than something more interesting.
That's actually vodka. Don't lie.
That's right. It's
gonna get me man, I'm so sick. I gotta drink this whole pint of vodka. And my fake drink is green tea. So I usually drink green tea in the afternoons. Sometimes I'll down a bunch of espressos though, but today it's so it's caffeine. No alcohol because I gotta go drive my kid around after this. So I don't want to be that dad. So
how about you, Tim?
I am drinking some Neptunia Hendrix. It's a very light kind of special blend of Hendrix gin with a little bit of lemon lime soda and a little bit of simple syrup. So just kind of a light kind of soda type drink. So not bad.
Well, that's a good idea. I'm at the office and we're packed and everybody's here, so I didn't have time to go mix myself a drink. I'm enjoying a delicious IPA. This Deep Elm one is
nice.
That's a good one.
Good.
It's a really nice one. And
nice.
Anything you want to go toast for right now?
Toast to Matt's recovery. I hope that you recover soon and you're back to normal. So it'd be good to hang out again. I also hope I didn't catch what you have. So toast to my future recovery. So we're just preempting that.
Let's toast to health. Cheers.
Yeah. To health. Yes, of course.
Cheers.
All right. We got our warm-up question. So what have you engineered or built that has gone terribly wrong?
I have an answer here. So I was working on this project, and people know like I'm an orchestration advocate. I've worked with Airflow and some with other projects as well. And so I kind of, on this particular project, I resisted orchestration for a long time. I'm like, no, let's keep it simple. And eventually it got complicated enough, so we need to do orchestration. So I set it up, and then pretty soon, like the team wanted to do all this stuff to it that was just kind of abusive, like run jobs every 5 minutes and stuff. And so we started adding that. And then pretty soon I was like leaving this company and going to a different job. And so I tried to hand it off, and it just didn't get handed off. Like no one picked up the slack. And then, like years later, it was it's still running and not being upgraded and various other things. And I'm like, how do you guys still have this running? So I guess the point maybe behind this rambling is that as we develop things and as we deploy technologies, there's always this organizational problem of like ownership in addition to just building something out. So yeah.
Yeah. Who owns things is always a question.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a really big question for sure.
It's a huge question.
Yeah.
How about you, Joe?
I can't really think of anything that I've deployed where it broke per se, or that I'm like absolutely ashamed of. I don't know if that's like me conveniently forgetting everything that I've written that has broke, but yeah, it's a weird one. I was thinking about that question before, and I was like, I don't know. I think if I probably engineered something wrong, it was probably my calendar, which I'm trying to get better at. But I think as far as anything I've deployed, any technology, I'm proud to say I haven't, which means I probably wasn't trying hard enough or something like that. I guess I don't know. So
You've been too much in your comfort zone, then probably. I don't know.
yeah, or I had a lot of people keep me in check too. So there's that. If you work in a good team, then the chance of you. I would say that I had the chance to introduce a lot of things that probably would have been very disruptive. Yes. So, but it's all counterfactual. So, yep.
You, Tim?
This is an interesting question. I'll give a really quick work example, and then I'll give a quick personal example. So, work example is I was working for a startup. I started a company like 12 years ago called Corkshare, and it was actually like a lot like Pinterest. Around the same time, actually, that Pinterest was getting started. And the day before our demo day for presenting it to investors, we decided to add a major new piece of real-time functionality to the platform. And the demo went down in flames. So that's an example of a thing that I wish I could have back. My early days of product management, realizing, wait, maybe you shouldn't be developing and launching brand new features the day before the big demo. So,
that's,
and then,
it's gutsy.
Yeah, that was gutsy. It was a bad move, and now I know. Personal thing, I was trying to put a big TV on the wall the other day, and I bought a mount to put it on the wall, and that was a disaster. I don't know. Me and TV mounts, that's rough.
Wait, do you still have the TV?
I do. I haven't destroyed it.
Okay, that helps.
Okay, it didn't fall or anything.
I put one up too. We have this giant TV in the next room over here, and mounting that thing on the wall is you're not sure if you're on a kamikaze mission or something, because when you let go of the TV, you're like, I hope this holds.
And you need more than 2 friends. You need like 5
to position it exactly right. You need more control. Now, was this right after the cocktail hour or anything like that? Were there any extenuating circumstances?
It's right after our show, actually. So yeah.
I don't know. I mean, whatever. I think I'm being bored. I do not have a good answer for this one. I mean, yes, we probably built systems that should not exist anymore. I think that's some stuff. There's some code that I've written, and I'm like, I don't think that code should be running, but it's still there. So, but nobody's ever complained.
Yeah, but that's just it. Matt's example, I think, is actually really illustrates the reality of a lot of things. Where I think as long as it's working, is it worth redoing just for the sake of it? Matt and I always say, I can't remember who said it, but legacy is a condescending term for things that make money. And I think as long as it's working and doing its job and contributing something, then, maybe it did its thing. Could it be prettier? Sure.
My repost might be what we emphasize in the book, which is security above everything else. And so that's the one thing.
Don't tell them that part. Yeah.
So, keep stuff updated so it's secure. That's
okay. Right. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Right. It's in a public S3 bucket, and here it is, by the way.
Right.
So yeah, that fat engineer there. All right, let's dive in on. All right, honest, no BS. Why are data engineers so fixated with tools today? Let me go start with this.
Joe likes to refer to this as shiny object syndrome, or I've heard it called Magpie syndrome as well.
Magpie syndrome.
Yeah, meaning magpies chase shiny stuff. That's what they do.
I didn't know that.
Bits of glass and silver and metal. They'll gather pieces of metal in their nests. Anything that's shiny, they'll collect. Supposedly, I mean, maybe this is some Disney Channel mythology or something like this. But
that's interesting.
Yeah. So I think engineers, why do we get into engineering in the first place, right? Because it's cool. It's like, oh, look at this cool technology and scalable clusters and everything. And so I think there's a real tendency to chase after cool stuff just because it's cool. And then the second thing is this idea of resume-driven development. That's another major problem.
Yeah. I was thinking because technology and tooling is the easy part. I think I've counted 6 conversations I've had today with people where, it's something I was thinking a lot about this weekend while I was writing an article on data modeling. And the question behind the article is why is data modeling seeing a resurgence all of a sudden? Why is it a hot thing, right? So I had a LinkedIn post in this last week just asking, okay, so what would you add to data modeling? And, it's a constructive conversation. But then I got thinking, okay, so why are we having this conversation? It's not like this is a new conversation. It's not like this is a new idea. I mean, COD and Chen and in the relational world, I mean, that's super old. It's older than all of us. And then even dimensional modeling, I mean, that's nothing new either. And so, but why is it we're rediscovering these ideas and these practices? Why are we having this conversation? Then it got me thinking, okay, so along the way, tooling's gotten really easy, right? So technology is a lot easier than it used to be. If you rewind 15 years ago and we're trying to do data stuff, I wagered to guess that it was technologically more constrained and very much more expensive especially if you had a data warehouse, say, right? You couldn't just go spin that up in the cloud. That didn't really exist back then. That wasn't an option. You would have to, you have to do some arm twisting and selling a bit of your soul to make this happen. And so now it's different, right? With a credit card, I can go spin up whatever tools I want. In a lot of ways, I feel like technology is the easy part now. But and what's happening is I feel like because technology is easy, but also because what I notice is there's a lack of, or I guess there's not as much emphasis on the people in the process of the people process technology continuum. What you're seeing is an overweighting on the technology. And so you're able to do a lot more stuff with the technology. It's easier to fixate on it, but you're still repeating the same dumb processes over and over again because you haven't built that foundation, right? You don't know how to see with data, for example, right? You don't have data literacy, perhaps. Maybe you don't have good team dynamics. Maybe you don't understand data modeling, and all these other processes now. And so this leads you up to technology. So if you don't have that foundation, you can certainly do a lot of things with technology, but I think, it's going to be a very substandard experience, which is, I think, what we're all seeing, right? Juan, in our talk, you were hitting on knowledge as being something that's incredibly important. And, to me, that's a people and a processing, not a technological question. Like that's just learning how to see better as a person and how to view the world better. But that's not a tooling question, but it's easy to gravitate towards tools, and every vendor in the world wants you to try their tool that will solve everything. And so that's why I think that happens a lot, in addition to what Matt said. So
yeah, that comment you made, Matt, about resume-driven development, like kind of resonated with me a little bit. That I there's a lot of, well, if I have like Dagster and DBT and Snowflake and a lot of these things on my resume, that a lot of times, and this is where I wonder if the fault is a little bit on us as for those who have to hire data engineers and are building data teams too, that we're also like we're looking for these hot button tech too, so we're part of the problem here. There definitely does seem a lot of like, well, what's hot, what's new, and maybe we fixate a little bit on the technology skills and experience more than more of the fundamental stuff. Like how good are you at interacting and collaborating with other people? We may think that we value that a lot in our resume, but are we valuing it enough?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, so I mean, we all work in data, obviously. It's and I think we all work with a lot of companies and talk to a lot of people. And so, I mean, riddle me this. In companies where the tech stack on paper looks very impressive and significant and could potentially do a lot of things, how often is it that you see these data teams still stumbling or maybe not getting the value that they should out of the technology that they have?
So you're saying that the tech stack is established, you bring the people in, the data teams in, and then they're struggling with the current tech stack. How much is that the actual scenario? Is that the question?
It's one of the scenarios, yeah. And I guess and quote, adding value with data, right? That's the other component of it. So yeah.
I mean, I go back to looking at the entire landscape, right? You look at all the data landscapes, all the different tools, and we say this all the time, right? Every single feature is now becoming a category. This is just ridiculous, the amount of tools they have to go through. But if we look at the principles, they really haven't changed. And you have it here in your book too, right? You have to ingest data. You have to store data. I mean, at the end of the day, the principles are you move data, you got to store the data, you got to compute the query the data, and then you got to go use the data to answer some questions, right? And yes, there's more details to that stuff, but essentially this stuff is the same. So if you have the tools to go move data, you have the tools to store and compute data, if you have the tools to go analyze data, I think you have the basis there to be able to go start providing value. And then I think that's when we start getting into like, oh, but there's that shiny object that makes this little thing more efficient, right? And I think a lot of these tools too are about, oh, we drive more efficiency. It's like, okay, that drives your efficiency to your data team, but are we generating more money, saving more money for the company? Are you making that argument? I mean, oh, we're more efficient, so we'll probably do more things. But is that really happening or not? Because we get so bogged down into like implementing all these technologies. I mean, so my answer, I think I'm coming up with the answer to your question, which is, if you have these bases of these principles, you should be able to go do a lot, and you should be able to provide value. Now the question is, can you provide more of that value? More of that value, can provide it faster, and I think that's when we say, throw more technology, it's going to happen. And I'm like, not always.
And I think we really saw this in the Hadoop era, right? Like everyone wanted to jump on the Hadoop bandwagon because it's like, oh, we're going to have big data. In fact, we have big data. It's lurking on our servers. We need to collect it and analyze it. And then in practice, some of these projects generated a lot of value. Many of them did not, because there was a focus on the technology and not actually on the outcome that they were trying to achieve with this technology. And I think absolutely the same thing can happen now with cloud, right? Like Snowflake, BigQuery, even Redshift are amazing technologies, but if you don't have a strategy for using them, if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have some organization of your data, then you're not going to get very far in terms of delivering value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a big sort of a skill rush when the sort of Hadoop movement happened, right? And it was like you couldn't have enough like people learning MapReduce and Pig and Hive and all these different things. And we were talking a lot about the skill gap, and so a lot of people were focused on like, oh, got to skill up real fast on these new areas. And I assume that was helpful, as that was a hype topic. But now that we're kind of moving on to like, okay, this is just one more tool in the toolkit. I wonder where that leaves us. And I wonder if, data engineers felt like, do a lot of data engineers feel like that they valued diving deep into those technologies, or did that end up being a little bit of a fool's errand?
I think there's a couple threads to this. If you take a step back, there's the skills gap, as it's been discussed, I think mostly relates to technology, right? So I have a skill gap in, cloud technologies, for example, right? Go get certified. Now you're, competent in using the cloud, that kind of thing, right? That's a remedy, but it doesn't include or focus on, again, the people or process skills. This is what I see fundamentally is missing. Is the knowing how to assess business problems. That's a people skill. Knowing how to talk to stakeholders and and sort of map out what's the path towards the goal that we're trying to achieve with this data project, for example, right? That's something I think that's extremely underrated. But when I see most data projects fail, it's because of that specific thing, like asking the wrong questions. That has nothing to do with whether or not you're good at Hadoop or you're good at Velux, the new query engine that Facebook just open sourced the other day, or whatever, right? I'm talking about recent to old stuff and everything in between. And it's like, why is it that, I've been in data for a long time now, and it's like, why are we still asking the same questions that we've been asking for, well, as long as I've been in it? And when I talk to people like, Bill Inman, as long as he's been in it, we're fundamentally like in this hamster wheel of asking the same questions. And I think
new vendors, new tools, new tech, same questions.
And I was thinking a lot about this over the weekend, because I just have a very exciting life. But the questions that kept coming up as writing and thinking as well, I'm asking the wrong questions about modeling. Actually, I'm not assessing it from the reason why we've been sort of recycling the same stuff over and over. And again, it does come back to, I think fundamentally we're not upskilling people in the right areas. We're expecting them to have tech skills, but that is like a component. And I would say maybe 16% of the way there, in terms of you need the people skills. You need to understand how to assess problems, and you need the processes to put those in place. Technology is there to enable it after. And I know this is something that a management consultant would tell you, but successive management consultants, I would say, is pretty mixed too. So why are we here?
Okay. So what are the things that we should be telling kind of the data engineers today that you should focus on these types of skills? You said one, how to assess problems. I got mine, and I rant them all the time. I'm going to shut up now and let you guys speak.
Matt?
I mean, we dedicate a whole section of the book to actually choosing technologies because with the flexibility of the cloud, in most data engineering jobs you're going to run into, in architecture jobs in the current market, there's going to be some degree of upgrading and changing technologies and such. And I don't think we spend enough time talking about actually assessing technologies based on business problems and then making choices in that kind of framework, rather than just picking really cool stuff, right? Like all my friends are using Snowflake, therefore I should use Snowflake. That's not a good reason to use Snowflake. There are lots of great reasons to use it, but that's not a good one. And that's kind of how we do things right now. I don't know. Joe, you go.
You call it the curse of familiarity, right, Matt?
Yes.
So this is, I mean, it's a classic hammer and nail situation. I mean, just people are comfortable using what they have always used, and so therefore they'll use it. I mean, you see this all the time. Say that you get a new tech lead or a new CTO in a company. What's the first thing that they do? We were talking about this on the show with Milan last week, and he brought up a good scenario. It's like that person blames the other person for all the problems, and it's like, what they did was stupid. We're not going to keep that around. So I know this tech stack I used at my last job, and as he correctly points out too, it's like, well, I'm probably leaving my job for a reason. Maybe I wasn't that successful at it, so I'm getting into this new job now, or I can become victorious and so forth. So they bring in the tech stack they're familiar with, and this happens all the time. I would wager probably dozens of times each day or more. And so that sort of gets you into this interesting vendor lock-in before you even gotten locked in with a contract, right?
This reminds me of we got football season coming up, right? And it reminds me of like you get a new coach, right? And the coach brings their playbook, and they're like, "Hey, this is my play. We do West Coast offense, right?"
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, you're exactly right though. That's because that's that's just kind of how it works, I suppose, right? But you see this in other industries too. You're going to bring in your favorite, whatever tool into your company because that's what you're comfortable with, and then everyone has to do that. And hopefully, this company hasn't seen like 5 versions of you in the last year because it's going to get very jarring very fast. So, but this happens all the time. So I'd say that more than a lot of reasons, this is why tech stacks exist in companies. It's not because it was the best thing to do at the time. It's because it was somewhat of a premeditated lock-in position that just sort of happened. As you say, West Coast offense, coach comes in, let's do it.
Right. So, I mean, how do data engineers handle that? So we're talking about like skills data engineers need to be focused on. And it sounds like there's a pretty dynamic element of like, being able to work in a different, same patterns, different technologies, same patterns, different clouds. I don't know.
Another one I would add, and Joe and I, there's a whole section on this in the book. We actually talk about it quite a bit in many sections, is this notion of enterprise data engineering. And especially in the early 2000s and with Hadoop and Spark and everything, there was this notion, this goes along with Adam Alsop's comment, who talks about data lakes being treated as this magical beast, where no one wanted to do the old school stuff, right? It's like everything is new, it's big data. Don't worry about modeling. Don't worry about schema. Don't worry about cataloging. And enterprise data engineering is the stuff that like goes back to the 80s that maybe no one wants to do, but it's actually super, super valuable. Like thinking about your model, thinking about the purpose of the data, cataloging and tracking the data quality. Increasingly, we now call it data observability, right? This whole notion of monitoring the quality and quantity of your data in semi-real time so you can see when things are going wrong. And of course, you guys fit right into that data catalog because we're right in the middle of enterprise data engineering.
So, this is a really interesting notion you say, right? Because I think people learn to become, or they get courses, they get certified wherever now to become data engineers and data scientists, and take a master's course in the 9 months or whatever. But you're not. That's not the enterprise, right? And you can't expect to understand what the enterprise is going to look like in 9 months or a year for course that you're taking. But then they learn these things without understanding the context of what happens within an organization. And so I was a couple months ago. I was giving a course in master's. It was a master's in AI course